We're not even 4 months removed from the last federal election, but voters in one Alberta riding are headed back to the polls. It's a by-election being watched across Canada as Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre looks to return to Parliament. We'll take a closer look at what's made the by-election of Battle River Crowfoot so fascinating. That's next on The Line, Alberta. And welcome to The Line, Alberta. My name is Rob Breakenridge. The month of August would normally be a sleepy time in politics, especially since we all voted in a federal election earlier this year. But as you may recall, it was a disappointing federal election for the Conservative Party of Canada. Not only did they fail to dislodge the Liberals from government, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre lost his own Ottawa seat. But Poilievre is staying on as leader of the Conservative Party, and so he must find his way back to the House of Commons. And that's where the riding of Battle River Crowfoot comes in. This was certainly one of the safer Conservative seats in the entire country in the last election. Damien Carrick won the vote, was re-elected in this riding with 83% of the vote. And so Mr. Carrick was the one to step forward and offer his seat to the leader of his party. For his part, Prime Minister Mark Carney obliged and didn't delay on calling the by-election, which is set for August 18th. Here's the thing, though. Damien Carrick faced 4 candidates in April. One of the big talking points in this by-election has been the long list of challengers to Pierre Poilievre. A group calling itself the Longest Ballot Committee has been targeting ridings and races, including Poilievre's Ottawa riding in the last election. Their goal is to try to recruit record numbers of candidates. Their goal, they say, is to raise the issue of electoral reform. Well, this by-election has far surpassed any of their previous efforts, with over 200 candidates running. So many, in fact, that Elections Canada had to create a special write-in ballot for voters. But this by-election also poses another challenge for the Conservative leader, what we might call conservative apathy. In the aftermath of yet another Liberal victory, the idea of Alberta separation has taken off, especially amongst Conservative voters. But if the Conservative base in Alberta is indifferent to federal politics or the result of this by-election, how might that affect Poilievre's showing? Independent candidate Bonnie Critchley has made quite a splash in this race. I had the chance to catch up with Bonnie to talk about the race, the riding, and everything else. Here's that conversation. All right, well, we are very pleased to be joined here on The Line, Alberta by Bonnie Critchley, a 22-year veteran of the Canadian Forces, and of course, one of the candidates contesting this by-election in Battle River Crowfoot. Bonnie, so great to have you with us here.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Really good, really good. So first of all, I mentioned obviously your service to Canada, your time in the military, but let's start with a little bit more about yourself.
I was the 22-year veteran. My father served, my grandfather, my grandmother served, my great-grandfather served, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm 5th for sure, probably 6th generation serving. But 5, I know for sure. I'm still trying to find records for number 6 way back when. So otherwise, excuse me, because I grew up an Army brat, always moved around Canada. Started in Calgary, went to Nova Scotia, came back to Calgary, went to New Brunswick, came back to Calgary. They closed the base in Calgary. We went to Suffield. So I went to high school in Medicine Hat. A few years later, I did college down in Lethbridge. When my father retired, a couple of years after that, just about 20 years ago now, he bought some property west of Knee Hills, or of 3 hills in Knee Hill, and the breed and raise horses now. And then during COVID, I moved up to Tofield, so now I live in Tofield.
So the riding is home for you.
Riding is home for me, yep, and has been for almost 20 years.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, I mean, this is a fairly large riding in kind of east central Alberta, I guess. What do folks need to know about this riding?
Well, it's 52,000 square kilometers. Yeah. With a population of approximately 100,000, with approximately 85,000 electors. It's an interesting mix of rural and urban. It's not a metropolis like one of the big cities, but we definitely have some town folks who have no idea which way to go with a tractor. So,
Right. So that'd be, yeah, I mean, Camrose, right? Drumheller.
Camrose,
Famous
Drumheller,
riding.
Wainwright,
Yeah.
Stettler,
Right.
yeah, all of these large communities are small businesses. They're tradesmen. They're not the farmers that we hear so much about in this by-election.
Okay, so you're running in this by-election, and we'll talk about the long list of candidates running in this by-election. We'll get to that, but let's talk about you first of all. What prompted you to join this race?
Honestly, it was as silly as it is to say, just a sense of duty. I've seen what happens when democracy degrades. We're watching it live in live time, south of the border. What happens when democracy degrades? And I couldn't sit and watch anymore. When an individual was overwhelmingly given a mandate, decides to step down and go take a cushy job elsewhere, doing lobbying, just so a guy who not only lost his seat but blew a 25-point lead in an election can try again when he's already been fired for not showing up or not being able to do anything but yell slogans.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed it wasn't to be born.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't run in the general election, just so everyone's aware. So what was not your role necessarily, but as an observer, as a voter, you participated in the election. Did you vote for Damien
Yes,
Kirk?
I did vote.
Yeah.
I won't tell you who from, because we need to stop with
Sure.
this team politics thing. And it's a rude question. We need to stop judging people based on who they voted for. So it's a question I won't actually answer.
No, fair enough. But yeah, to be going back to the polls, just over 4 months after the fact, it is certainly unusual. I mean, your own reaction, first of all, when you heard he was stepping down, and what's your sense of how folks in the riding are feeling about going back to the polls so quickly after an election?
I am not the only one disgusted and angry. A lot of people are very disgusted and very angry about this. They voted for the individual and not the party. And Albertans generally can be a stubborn, little bit independent lot, and don't like being used. And that's exactly what's happening, is we are being used and we are losing our voice in Parliament, because we all know he couldn't be bothered to go the half hour across the city to stand up for his constituents there. What's he going to do for us 3,000 kilometers from where he wants to be?
You've done some debates, I believe. I mean, what's the extent to which you've encountered Pierre Poilievre so far?
He avoids me. I've had multiple events where I was told he was on site, but nowhere to be found. During the forums, because it was not a debate, it was a forum. We weren't allowed to debate.
Okay.
We had to stay mostly polite. But he would come up, shook everybody's hand, gave the plastic man politician spiel, and then disappeared. So he absolutely disrespected our hosts, the other candidates, and most especially our constituents here in Battle River Crowfoot, with the stunts he pulled in the Camrose Forum. Drumheller, we were surprised to see him, but he tried to pull some of the same stunts. Giant crowd supporting him at the front, making everybody walk past it, etc., etc., etc. But he wasn't able to load the crowd. And for the Stettler Forum, even though it was sold out, all the tickets claimed, it was half empty, which means they were claimed by certain supporters that never bothered to show up, preventing other people who actually wanted to hear what everybody had to say from being there. But he himself, no, he avoids me, except for the plastic man handshake, fake politician smile, and then disappears. He does not want to deal with the other candidates and feels he's above all the rules.
So the narrative is that this is a safe Conservative seat, right? Damien Kirk got 83% of the vote back in April. So I think people look at this as okay, this is a slam dunk then for the leader of the Conservative Party in this riding. But what do you say in response to that kind of an argument?
That unless you go door to door to door to door, you don't have a good feel for this. It turns out, yes, we have a lot of right-leaning folks. We have a lot of small C conservatives. We don't necessarily have as many big C conservatives as everybody thinks. Mm-hmm. Most people voted for Mr. Keurig simply because he was the local boy who actually showed up. When the Chamber of Commerce in Camrose tried to run a previous candidate for him, he was the only one who showed up. So yes, he won by a lot because, well, if you can't be bothered to show up for a job interview, you're not going to get the job. And as I go door to door, folks don't need to argue with their neighbors. They don't need to argue with the loud, angry people. They know what they want. And people are angry. And it's a quiet angry, but people are angry. They are not happy to be spending another $2 million to do this election when they're barely scraping by.
Well, that's the thing. And I mean, in the general election, people are voting, even though they're voting in the riding, they're sort of voting for the government. They're voting to affect the outcome. This is one of those situations where it doesn't change the outcome, doesn't change the government. And as you say, if people are frustrated or angry, it adds some volatility to this race, some unpredictability to this race, I think.
Yes. That being said, I have the chance to not change the government, but as an independent in a minority this close, I'm not just a voice lost in the backbenches. I have the capacity to say to any party, I can agree with you to vote majority to get this bill passed, but you have to do something for Battle River Crowfoot. And I would only agree with these parties if it benefits Battle River Crowfoot. So no, losing Mr. Keurig to only get Mr. Poilievre doesn't actually change anything in government. Voting in an independent or a different party who is not whipped, who is not forced to toe the party line, that becomes something very different. And that's where the people here can actually affect change for themselves by choosing their representative.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think that speaks to where there's some appeal or some advantage to being an independent. I wonder with these antics from the Longest Ballot Committee and the 200 registered candidates in this riding, Bonnie, is independent almost become a dirty word? Or how has this affected your campaign?
This is why I have been very outspoken against the Longest Ballot Committee. Besides the fact that they are damaging democracy by people don't want, it's a by-election. Voter turnout is low in by-elections to begin with. Now they have to deal with a 2-meter long double-wide ballot. So I do applaud Elections Canada for their solution to this. Mm-hmm. But I'm quite disgusted with the Longest Ballot Committee because they say they advocate for electoral change, and they immediately abused some of the first electoral change we've had in a while, which was removal of the administrative cost to get on the ballot. Yeah. So they have done long ballots before, but it used to cost $1,000 a name. Now it doesn't cost anything. So they've completely loaded the ballot. And then because the way things are, I am lost. I'm completely lost. So they're pushing us further into a party system instead of folks being able to find independents who will speak up for their needs and who aren't whipped to toe the party line. So I am quite disappointed with their ethics.
Yeah. Right. As you say, I mean, we took some steps to make it a little bit easier for average citizens to run as independents. And then, they take advantage of that. Probably the end result is we're going to end up making it tougher in the future for independent candidates, right?
Exactly. I don't have the giant party machine behind me. I have a small team. I have local volunteers, and I have a cheering squad from coast to coast to coast. But I don't have the giant party machine to be able to do this quite as smoothly as some of my opponents.
Mm-hmm. And just so folks know, I think advanced voting is already underway, but Elections Canada, their solution to this, because it would just been insane to have 200 names on a ballot, but there's still a list or a guide, I guess, with everyone's name on it, and
Yes,
then voters
there is a
write-in. It's a write-in
there
ballot?
is a binder via alphabetical order at every
Okay.
voting booth. Or at least I was told it was a binder. But yes, there is a list in alphabetical order at every voting booth.
I mean, it's kind of an elegant solution to this problem. I don't know if that's workable long term to have everyone have to write in the name of their candidate. And I know that poses some challenge for some folks, but maybe the best solution under the circumstances, you think?
A best solution under the circumstances, yes, I do agree. But this is, they've made it hard for me, who has a full platform. I have policies that will directly affect the folks here in Battle River Crowfoot. Things like right to repair, agricultural innovation, and whatnot. And they're doing their best to bury me. Whether that's their intention, that's what they're doing.
So how have these different candidate forums, how have they handled this long list of candidates, or the folks that are part of this longest ballot committee?
They basically haven't been invited. If you have Thomas Suwich, whatever his name is, as your agent, they weren't invited. Because they are known to be a protest and not actually an appropriate candidate.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of the issues affecting this race and how folks are feeling right now. I do wonder, since the federal election, we've seen kind of an upsurge or a push toward Alberta separation. And there's some frustration among some Albertans about how we're treated by Ottawa, or wondering what the point of Canada is, or the point of federal politics is. Are you encountering that perspective, first of all?
Yes. Not as much as folks would think. Again, I point out the provincial by-election that overlapped. I really feel sorry for the folks in Three Hills. They had to do a provincial by-election even as we're gearing up for this federal one. But I point out that the NDP candidate took far more of the vote than the Separatists did in this riding. So that's pretty telling in and of itself. But what we're seeing is foreign interference. We're seeing a premier who's been bought and sold us out and has committed traitorous acts. And she is using the rhetoric that we are all upset, because we all know that the election is over once it hits the western edge of Ontario. We know it's over. Like, we don't have a vote. But when I say, yeah, you're right, you are right to be angry. Alberta doesn't have, I don't think Alberta has any chance of separation. The legal, the treaty, the ethical, the moral, all of these things would just be. And then, of course, we'd be landlocked, and now we're dealing with our neighbors as a foreign government instead of as another province. So it makes no sense. But I'm like, you're right to be angry. That's fair. People are inflaming that rhetoric, but that base anger is there. And that's why electoral reform, while not on my platform, because I don't know what it looks like yet, I'm leaning towards proportional representation, but I'm not sure that's the answer, so it's not on my platform yet. But I say yes, absolutely. You are completely justified in being upset. Is somebody throwing gas on the fire? Absolutely. We're just going to ignore that. Here are the things I can do once I get to Ottawa to help fix things here in Alberta, make things feel a little bit better for us in Alberta.
Well, you mentioned the premier, and suggesting that she's sold us out or gone against Alberta's interest in some ways. What have you seen or heard from Danielle Smith that has disappointed you?
A whole bunch, and the old soldier in me definitely sees traitorous acts there. But my big push right now is to keep federal representation here in Battle River Crowfoot. It's because the guy from Ottawa coming in, even if he was born in Calgary is a giant metropolitan area, and communities are being absorbed. Battle River Crowfoot is not at all like Calgary. Again, which way the tractor goes forward. But at the very least, some of the smaller towns and even the city in here understands the significance of the crops, the cattle, the O&G we've got in this area. They understand the significance of the small businesses we have in this area. And Monsieur Poilievre is entirely focused on the wrong tactics again and is not going to be an appropriate advocate or an advocate at all for this region.
It's interesting, for the agriculture industry right now and looking at possible tariffs from the United States. We're getting hit hard with tariffs from China, everything we've gone through with, the cost of food in the last few years. I would imagine it's a tough time in the ag industry. What are you seeing and hearing then in the writing there and what that's doing or how that's affecting folks?
Well, this is why I came up with things like right to repair. Yes, we do have some right to repair laws on the books. They're performative and have absolutely no teeth to them, right? I've told the story over and over again of being told by a farmer in Oyen he can't even change his own air filter on his tractor without having to bring a tech in from town. We all have, those of us who live out here have those skills. But if he does it himself, he voids the warranty on his multi-million-dollar piece of machinery. So if he's having to pay for a tech, then our food production costs are going up. If our agricultural innovation, if farmers are having to pay royalties on seed that they've already purchased, now they have to pay royalties because it's sitting in a silo or in a seed bin, food production costs go up. And then when we start looking at some of the corporations like Loblaws, they own the entire chain. They own not just the grocery store, they own the distribution, the storage, the processing. They own everything. And that's why food keeps going up. And that's why I'm taking aim at corporations and hoping to give the Competition Bureau some actual teeth in order to help this. Mm-hmm. So you are very much correct. People are looking at these things. But I'm taking aim at some of the root issues to try and help bring some of these costs down.
Curious, too, about the issue around firearms. I know there's a lot of farmers and hunters, obviously, in the riding, and you come at it with some expertise as a former member of the Canadian Forces. But I think there is a lot of concern and frustration with federal policy and how this gun buyback's going to work or what counts as an assault-style rifle that's going to be banned under federal policy. Is this something you're hearing a lot of concern about?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And again, I've stood there in my field, mare foaling out, coyotes on the other side of the fence. Or when my great peer managed to corner a badger in the burrow that I'm standing on. And I'm yelling at my dad to bring the rifle, right? He was on the tractor. He didn't hear me. We managed to extract ourselves without anybody dying. It was great. But these are things that are needed. And it's not just ranching and hunting. It's also sport. Let's not forget sport. I don't know what the biathlon center in Canmore is doing anymore, if it's still there, but I know our biathletes are struggling. I know our competitive shooters are struggling. Mounted shooting has become, on horseback has dwindled. Even airsoft was affected, and it's because everything was so performative and slapdash. It wasn't proper thought out. It was knee-jerk reaction to a fear over incidents that occurred because of illegal firearms to begin with, so let's slap on more laws instead of enforcing those laws that we already had appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, the idea of, because I mean, most of these rifles we're talking about are semi-automatic, right? And I mean, a semi-automatic rifle is not automatically an assault style rifle under this federal legislation, but it's kind of a blurry line as to what is and what isn't. And it does seem like some actual hunting rifles have been caught up in this net. I mean, are you able to make sense of this approach?
If it looked scary, it was banned. For instance, we'd have, I think it was a Ruger 22, and there was a black one, and it had a pistol grip, which I like because I've shattered my arm on a bucking horse years ago. I like the pistol grip. A stock grip damage stretches that part of my wrist that doesn't work right anymore. But I think it was a Ruger 22. I'd have to go back into my notes to be sure, so don't take that as gospel there. But I think it was a Ruger 22 where the black one with a pistol grip was banned, but the exact same action and whatnot in a wooden stock grip was not. There is no difference in their performance or anything or their use. One looked scary, one did not.
Yeah. Are there other issues too that are kind of flying below the radar that you're hearing from? I mean, other concerns that people have with what's going on right now?
Not too many. I think I've addressed most of those. The things like that's what it was. It was that the other reason Alberta feels ignored is because we always vote Conservative. We always vote Conservative. So the Conservative Party does not need to spend time and money to bring things in to keep us happy as they would in some swing riding in Ontario or even in up by Edmonton that tends to be slightly more liberal. They'll spend the money there. They'll bring in the programs and the funding, etc. But they won't do it here because we're going to vote them in no matter what. And people are starting to realize that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Right.
So one of the things that I want to bring in is the federal student work experience program and other sources like that. And I don't care where the money is coming from, whether it's blue or red, I don't care, so long as Battle River gets to benefit. Yeah. And people are slowly coming to that realization.
I mean, I did want to ask you in the sense that this race is getting national attention. I imagine you've seen and spoken with national media. Folks are watching this. The frustration from having to go through this so soon after a by-election, but also maybe an opportunity to highlight this riding and highlight some of these issues and how folks in these kinds of ridings, rural ridings, and especially one here in Alberta are feeling is a bit of a double-edged sword or kind of a mixed blessing in that sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm getting all sorts of input from people. I'm like, okay, thank you. And then I carry on doing my thing. But no, it is great. And now, because of things like my platform, Right to Repair is now out in the national conversation. Innovation is out in the national conversation. I've got veterinarians and even dog groomers sharing the post that I made yesterday about corporations buying everything out. Mars, like the candy bar company, buying out veterinary practices and corporate veterinary costs skyrocketing, right? So with highlighting these issues, they have become national conversation, and I do appreciate that at least. I absolutely do appreciate that. I'd really like it if people just left us to decide our own representation, but that's fine. Sure. We'll make do.
Yep. Well, I guess we don't know when the next federal election is going to be, but I think already the Conservatives indicated that Damien Keurig will run again there. Pierre Poilievre won't run there again. So I don't know how much of a factor is that, or what do you make of that?
Well, those statements were made before it was announced that Mr. Keurig took a job as a principal with Upstream Strategy Group's corporate-based lobbyist out of Toronto. Sorry, a corporate lobbyist based out of Toronto. So I haven't heard much rumblings that Mr. Keurig will be back. I have no idea where Mr. Poilievre intends to go. If he intends to go back to Carleton and say, I'm sorry I ignored you, I don't know. At this point, I'm far more concerned about if Mr. Poilievre beats me, he's not going to be by much. I know I'm taking a huge chunk of his vote share. And with a leader that's already blown a 25-point lead, lost his own seat, and then lost a large chunk of vote share that a backbencher from the area won, what's going to happen in January for the leadership review? And if he is removed as the leader, is he going to be content to sit as a backbencher 3,000 kilometers from where he wants to be? Or is he going to take that cushy pension he's had since he's 31 years old and leave us doing this again in February? That is the
What's the thing?
concern
I
I've
can't
got.
really imagine a situation where he's not going to be the candidate in that riding in the next election there, right? Regardless of how this all plays out, it's just it doesn't seem like he's in it for the long haul here.
No, he's not. He is in it to use us to further his ambition, and that's it.
So it could be interesting on election night. And as you say, even if he does win, if it's by less than what we saw for the Conservative vote in April, and I think it almost certainly will be by all accounts, that could pose a problem to his political future, you think?
Absolutely. And I don't want to be doing this again in February. I will if I have to. Because what? 3 elections in a year? Because somebody couldn't be bothered to go talk to his own constituents? That's unconscionable, and it's unacceptable.
Right. There's always the possibility. I mean, it's a minority government still, technically. Minority governments can fall at any time, so we could still have another general election on top of all of that.
And we can have another general election on top of all of that. Yep.
So I don't know. How are you feeling about politics after having gone through this? I mean, we don't know how Monday's going to go, but I don't know. Has it affected how you view politics and all of that?
Honestly, it's given me a tiny bit of hope, because I've long been disillusioned because our politicians are bought and paid for by the assorted lobbyists, and their interests are put far and above that of everyday Canadians. Well, if nothing else, I've stood up as an everyday Canadian and said, no more. And there are other people going, yeah, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And I expect a rash of independents to step up after this. So it's given me a little bit of hope, because it's shown that a nobody, can go against a party leader with a machine like the Conservative Party of Canada and hold my own. And we can tell the corporations and the lobbyists and the politicians, no, you represent us. That's how this works. You do not represent the money. So it's given me a bit of hope. I know it's given hope to people across the country, because it always makes me blush when people tell me that. I haven't quite figured out how to manage that one gracefully yet. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think we've definitely seen a potential turning point in Canadian politics where nobody can go, no, you don't get to walk on us anymore. We're going to stand up for ourselves.
We're less than a week away from Election Day. Where are you going to be on election night?
Oh, I'll be in the office. I'll be in the office in Camrose. I'll have the supporters and friends who are not acting as scrutineers for me. I'll have them in the office with me, and the media is going to be champing at the bit to have a conversation, win or lose.
No doubt. So in the meantime, the website is BonnieCritchleyIndependent.com, correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we'll see how it all plays out, and I'm sure we've not heard the last of Bonnie Critchley. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us here. Really do appreciate this.
All right. Appreciate it so much. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, our thanks again to Bonnie Critchley, independent candidate in this riding of Battle River Crowfoot. I will note we did reach out to both Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre and I guess now former Conservative MP Damien Carrick to talk about this riding and this race. Did not hear back from either. So we'll see how things play out on Monday night, August 18th. The by-election takes place. I don't think there's a lot of drama. I expect Pierre Poilievre will win this race. But as Bonnie Critchley explained, I mean, it could be a much different story from what we saw back in April with the 83% of the vote that Damien Carrick captured. The other question, I guess, coming out of this is, are we going to see some changes with regard to independent candidates? Are we going to make some rule changes or raise the bar somewhat to prevent this longest ballot committee from doing what they've been doing? I mean, it did get to ridiculous proportions in Battle River Crowfoot with more than 200 candidates on the ballot. I don't know if it's feasible or workable to do a write-in ballot in every riding in every election, but it was really, I think, the only choice that Elections Canada had with how things got in this by-election with, as I say, more than 200 candidates. So that's going to be something else to watch moving forward. The Conservative leader has called for changes. Even the chief electoral officer last year was calling for some changes to prevent this sort of thing from happening. So we went from 80 or 90 candidates in a couple of recent elections and by-elections to more than 200. So I think something probably needs to be done there. So I'll be curious to see how that's settled. And I mean, the other thing too, that you don't want to make it too difficult for independent candidates, those that don't have a party behind them, to contest in federal elections. So as mentioned, Monday is the by-election, and we'll see what the aftermath of all of that looks like. That's where we'll leave it for this episode of The Line Alberta. Much more, of course, alberta.readtheline.ca. We'll be back with another episode for you next Wednesday. My name is Rob Breakenridge. We'll talk to you then. Take care.